Yeah, it's like traffic dead standstill. And Waze doesn't give you like information anymore. No one tells you.
Big fucking news flash. We got a sig alert up Roth's ass.
It wasn't a sig alert. It was a...
Oh, it's a fucking sig alert up there. So goddamn special. California. Blah, blah, blah.
Welcome to Backtracking, the show where two old friends take a second listen to influential bands' catalogs track by track. I'm Ralph Bagdasarian.
And I'm Dan Fiden. We'll be taking this journey together, Ralph and I, providing context, both personal and historical, on some legendary bands. For our first season, we've picked none other than Rush. Ralph, we're back. Side C, side 3. We've discussed multiple times now, how is it possible to have a 3-sided vinyl? But apparently it is possible because that's what Discogs said this album is. And so we're starting the third side of the album with Double Agent, Roth.
Yeah, it's about to get hot in here.
Yeah.
But what's on side 4? There has to be something. Would it be just a glossy finish?
It must just be that sound of like vinyl with nothing on it, you know? That creepy sound that sometimes they play in horror movies when like the vinyl album stops. It must just be that.
I mean, did we ask anyone? Like, hey, people out there listening, what was on side 4 of the vinyl? I'm sure one of you has the vinyl of
they don't know.
Counterparts.
These people don't know. They don't know.
So let's get into it.
All right, let's do it.
Track number 8 off of Rush Counterparts is the first track off of side 3 or C off of the album on the vinyl. It is called Double Agent. Yes.
How long is it, Rafi?
Well, yours are always 3 seconds longer, so I'm going to say 4 minutes 50 seconds.
4 minutes 51 seconds, my
Jesus
friend.
Christ. Mine says 4:53, so it's only 2 off. Okay, so 4 minutes 50 and change, and we're going to listen to it right now. So put on your headphones and kick back and relax. Double Agent.
Where would you rather be? Anywhere but here. When will the time be right? Anytime but now. Anywhere but here. Anywhere but here.
Okay. So, Double Agent. So I think this is like in some ways the most interesting song on the album. Do you want to know why I said that, Ralph, or should I just let that hang in the air like a parfum de?
No, I mean, it's a double agent. I mean, they make movies about double agents. They're fascinating characters.
I just think that like lyrically, it's so kind of strange. So I guess the way I feel about this is, judging by this album's curve, I think these are great lyrics. I agree.
I agree. I
don't think they're great like within the context of all Rush lyrics, but I think they're probably the best lyrics on this album. And for me, it's because they're not really on the nose, and they're describing a somewhat unusual thing. And it's just this sense of, you know, dread.
Well, let's start right off the bat. Just the title, Double Agent, fits into the whole Counterparts theme.
Yes.
And it is about inner conflict, duality, anxiety, paranoia, a lot of metaphors again in this. And I agree. I mean, I would recommend anyone just read the lyrics. They're beautifully written. Like if you're to just read the lyrics without the music, it'll give you chills. It's just really beautiful. It's mysterious. It's cinematic, very cinematic lyrics.
Yeah. And I like that it really feels to me, I mean, there's probably much more to it, but I think the most literal thing that this is about is something that I do think is universal, but not kind of frequently written about in songs, which is that sense of kind of anxiety and dread that sometimes you can have when you're up in the middle of the night and can't sleep, either because of anxiety and dread or as a result of just waking up in the middle of the night and there's nothing to distract you. And so you just get kind of anxious. I think that's a pretty universal thing that a lot of people have felt. And I'm pretty certain I've never heard of another song about that feeling. And I think that's one of the things I really like about this.
Well, and I like one of the things I really, and it comes up recurring in the lyrics is this whole wilderness of mirrors, right? Which when you have a name like Double Agent, it obviously evokes all sorts of imagery. But the section begins with wilderness of mirrors, and it happens several times throughout the song. But one that I'm just to give you an example of these lyrics. One is wilderness of mirrors, streets of cold desire, my precious sense of honor, just a shield of rusty wires. I hold against the chaos and a cross of holy fire. It's just beautifully written, I think.
I think these are pretty good. They're pretty evocative lyrics. I think they're more in the Jacob's Ladder, kind of realm than most of his lyrics. And I will say, generally speaking, I think these are pretty well executed. But I think it would be, and maybe this is the right way to transition into the music, but I think it would be. Because they're so inextricably tied in the one section that we're talking about here. That's right. And I think it would be irresponsible for us to not talk about the spoken word section of the sections of this song without comparing it to the rap sections in Roll the Bones. And I wouldn't put it in there. No, but I'll just go with me for a second. I think it's because they have not done spoken word or rap really. They have done it previously in their career, right? They did it in The Necromancer. They've done it in they've done these little spoken word snippets, but they did not do it for a really long time. At this point in their career, it's been 20 or 15 years anyway, probably more like. But the effect was very different in this. This is like a graphic novel in musical form. Yeah, I mean, that was my point. Like, I think that they're, in some ways, with Roll the Bones and this, in some ways, it's difficult not to describe them because chronologically they're so closely adjacent. But it works so much better in this song. You know, you mentioned. It's funny you mentioned Jacob's Ladder because remember how we categorized Jacob's Ladder in its own place. It's not. Yeah. It's sort of outside the eras we defined. It's sort of, like how Rush is doing these prototypical albums and they move forward, but there are these moments where they have these songs that are sort of like standalone little sort of portmanteaus of music. And I think this is one of the. I think this is one of these things that you can sort of pluck from their catalog, hold it on its own, and it stands alone in Rushdom. Yeah, I would agree with that. I also think that there's, and maybe this is wrong. I don't want to move into the next album very much, but I have started to do my research on this next album. I will preview that a little bit. Just like you did his research on COVID in the lab. Yeah, and I'll tell you, this song struck me as Rush getting back to a proggy thing. Oh, yeah. Yes. It's a more proggy thing than they had done in quite a little while. And as I started to listen to the next album, the first thing that struck me about that album is, gosh, it's hard in the same way that, Counterparts is hard in some ways, but it's so much more proggy. It's like they completely rediscovered kind of like prog rock and their love for kind of much more complicated structure and I feel like this is maybe a little glimpse of that coming up. Yes, and you know what, the other thing I'll say about this, I wondered if they would have rearranged the order of the songs on this album, right? Because the more we're talking about it and the more I'm thinking about it, because obviously I think about it before we do the recording of this podcast, but when we're talking about it and you're really going deep and saying it aloud, this really isn't as much of a departure
from Rush as I originally anticipated, right? Or I originally
this
thought.
album or this
album, this whole album, yeah.
Yeah, it really is almost like those first three songs are.
It's like the first three. It's like they made a cake that's 100% Rush, but they put like an icing on it that's like popular music at the time and not something that Rush fan. It's like a beautiful like red velvet cake underneath like a frosting of liverwurst. A liver flavored frosting.
I don't know. That's the second time liverwurst has come up.
I know. I wanted to connect it again because I don't think liver is mentioned enough, or liverwurst is mentioned enough on podcasts these days, and I want to do my part, for humanity. But this is a very cinematic song.
Yeah,
musically. Yeah. The part where there's the spoken word also gets very frenetic, right? It's a very complex rhythm, chord progression. It's not standard. Very proggy, right? But it's also very rocky, and also it's very cinematic.
Yeah,
like it's almost like 007. It's like a very double agenty, right? Yeah. It could be like a 007. If you were to put this in like a James Bond movie, it would totally fit, or a Bourne Identity movie or something.
I mean, I'll tell you what, like this song, and again, I don't want to like skip too much ahead to the next album, but my first reaction, this song, and then the first song on the next album. My first reaction was like, gosh, it seems like somebody gave him a Dream Theater album.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh yeah, Dream Theater. That's fucking, we used to play prog. Maybe we should do that again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
By the way, I mentioned Bourne Identity. So just a shout out to a friend of mine who I know listens to this pod, or at least has listened to an episode or two. And that's one of the stars of the Bourne Identity, Franca Potenta. So I'm just going to give her a little shout out, see if she actually listens.
Well, hopefully,
probably not, but we'll see.
She's not a fan of. Hopefully, she's not a fan of Counterparts because we're.
Well, no, it's like we've called out like my brother Niles, and it's like none of them have reached out and said, "Hey, I heard you mentioned me on the podcast." None of them have called us up, so I think we know if they're actually listening. So, Franca, if you're listening, please text or let me know.
Listen. Franca, smash that fucking like button. What are you doing? You're just wasting all of our times not hitting the like button, not hitting the share button, and not giving us a 5-star review. All right.
So Double Agent. I like this song. I think this is a candidate for one of the best songs on the album, quite honestly.
Yeah, no, I think this is actually, all things considered, it is the most experimental song on the album, I would argue, but I also think it works as among the best of the songs on the album. I really like it. All right, Rob, should we move ahead to one that doesn't work as well as Double Agent, which is Leave That Thing Alone?
Yes, but before we do that, I just want to do a quick public service announcement to spay or neuter your cat or dog, just to prevent the ferals from taking over the streets.
Okay,
so
thanks
next
for throwing that in there. Thank you, Rafi. And Leave That Thing Alone. Instrumental, 4 minutes and 5 seconds. Leon Lifeson. Neil Peart had nothing to do with this one. He just played the fucking drums. So why don't we listen to it and see what he's got?
All right, so I actually liked this as an instrumental.
You did?
I'm saying, yeah. What was the last instrumental we did? Where's My Thing? Didn't like it so much. Didn't like it. Just being honest. Leave That Thing Alone. I mean, YYZ is obviously the gold standard of instrumentals for Rush, easily. This one I liked, especially following Double Agent, because it continues. You know what it's like? It's like Double Agent is a story. Leave That Thing Alone is kind of like the chase and the resolution of the movie that they just created between tracks 8 and 9. I mean, they just gave us a fucking epic movie, a spy thriller with 8 tracks, 8 or 9, and then they drop the mic at the end of it, right? And then Cold Fire, which we'll get to, is sort of like the closing credits. But I actually really dig this song. I think it's very interesting.
I disagree, Roth. I think this is a better instrumental than Where's My Thing. But I think that Where's My Thing, as I said before, sounded like charter bus music that's taking you on your way to some kind of a Christian convention. I don't think this is that much better. I think it does have that jazzy breakdown thing in the middle, which is kind of interesting. But it just is, when they did the instrumentals in the early part of their career, you know, YYZ, La Villa, these songs, it felt to me as though they kind of set out to do an absolute kind of technical musical workout. And it really, what carries it is like, yeah, the songs are really good, but they're just amazingly interesting musically and like technically really difficult to pull off for almost a band. These songs do not feel that way to me. They feel just like an indulgence.
Well, do we know what? So La Villa Strangiato was inspired by dreams that Alex Lifeson had, very sort of Alice in Wonderland-esque. And then YYZ was obviously about the call sign YYZ, the Toronto Pearson International Airport. Do we know what inspired Where's My Thing and Leave That Thing Alone, or were they just sort of cool riffs that they decided to make music?
I don't. All I know about these is that the band has said that they are not connected. The thing in question, Where's My Thing and Leave That Thing Alone, the thing in question does not refer to a single thing. Right. So apparently over the years, a lot of people have said to them, hey, where's my thing and leave that thing alone? Are you referring to some specific object that exists in the real world, like a penis or whatever it is? And they have said, no, in fact, they do not refer to the same thing. They're just two different phrases. That was one. And then the second thing that I heard about this is that they actually, I believe it was Alex that said he thinks that the melody in this song is one of the strongest melodies on the album. I may grant that, but that's not because I think there is a surplus of great melodies on this album.
And Nobody's Hero, I think, is stronger. I mean, I get what he's saying. It's very James Bondy as well. I think that speaks volumes, though, to having a theme for an instrumental, right? La Villa Strangiato. I mean, when you know what it's about, it makes even more sense. And even though, and I would argue that it's more musically nonsensical than any of the other instruments, than any of their other instrumentals. Yeah. La Villa Strangiato is just all over the map, right? I mean, there's like 20 different parts to it, and everyone's disparate. And with this one, I liked it. I thought it had some and what I really liked about it, maybe it's because I'm a bass player, is I loved Geddy's sound in it. I loved the bass sound in it. Like, that's what I like the most about this instrument.
I think these last two instrumentals have been the album equivalent of a drum solo or a guitar solo in a live set, right? They're just mostly indulgent and not really all that entertaining for anybody except the band and like really hardcore musicians.
Yeah.
I just, so, lest I'm kind of talking around the topic here, I don't like drum solos in live sets. I think they're dumb. I don't like guitar solos in live sets. I think they're dumb. And I don't like these instrumentals. I feel like they're fodder. They shouldn't have been included on the album.
Right.
And I can't blame Rupert Hine for this one because Peter Collins was behind the console.
You know what? I just wish you would have fucking told me this before we started this podcast. I mean, because here we are 31 episodes in. I don't want to continue anymore.
But Ross, listen, this was nominated.
No. I mean, you should have been upfront with me. You should have told me that you're going to get to this song and you're going to shit on it the way you did
for a Grammy. And I'm just, again, it lost the Grammy. It didn't lose to. Wouldn't it be amazing?
I'm a better man. I will look past this and I'll continue to this collaboration. But I think you're wrong. I think it's actually a really nice piece.
It would be amazing if this song, Where's My Thing was nominated and was beaten by Cliffs of Dover. It would be great if this song was nominated and it was again beaten by Cliffs of Dover.
Well, we both agree that it's better than Where's My Thing. We both agree that it's not as good as La Villa Strangiato or YYZ.
so far in the instrumentals in that we can think of off the top of our head, there's 4 of them that we've named. I would rank this as number 3. Right. So
yeah. I was thinking number 2 worst, but number 3 best. Yes.
Yeah.
No, we agree on that. So I think what's number 1 and 2?
So for me, I would say that number 1 is probably La Villa. But I think it's very close with YYZ. I mean,
yeah, I agree, because I was, it's funny. I thought YYZ because it's the most iconic, right? Just straightforward, iconic. But La Villa is so fucking out there and so experimental, but it works, and it's so. I would say La Villa. I would have to give the extra weight to the artistic value of La Villa, and just, I mean, it is. I mean, La Villa is a fucked up, surreal, like out there.
Totally.
But it's so good.
But there has never been a time that I've listened to La Villa where, when they get to that kind of like, they take it down, there's that little like kind of low key breakdown section before Monsters.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Every time they get to that point in the song, I grab the sides of my head. I'm like, holy shit, these guys are just fucking aliens.
Dan, I think we just need to establish La Villa is the best Rush instrumental. Yeah.
Awesome.
Let's put the stake down. We'll agree on that.
All right. Let's do it.
All right. So
Cold Fire.
Yeah. Cold Fire. So this is the penultimate song, which for you illiterates out there means the second to last song on the album, and the penultimate song on the side 3 of Rush Counterparts, called Cold Fire. It comes in at 4 minutes, 27 seconds by my count. Let's listen to it and then we'll talk about it. Okay. Thanks, kids.
I'll be around. You don't let me down too far. I'll be around. You don't let me down. It was just before sunrise when we started on tradition road. She said, sure, I'll be a partner, but don't make too many demands. I said, if love has these...
All right, I'm going to start with the music. We can go right to lyrics after this, but
great. Yeah, great.
Love Alex's guitar sound at the beginning of this. I love it. I just love it.
Okay.
And that's all I have to say about this.
I love there's a lot I love about the music of this song.
I do too. Yeah.
I love the chorus. It's really memorable. It has this kind of foreboding, it gives me some kind of like foreboding feeling, but like in a great way. I just really, and I guess what I'm saying is, the section that I'm referring to as the chorus is, I'll be around if you don't let me down too far. Right.
Yeah.
I think the lyrics and the music work together really well in there. It's very memorable. I really do like that section of the song.
Well, so this is also about duality, and I'm kind of tying it back to the lyrics here, even though I'm all over the map. So it's about passion versus reason, and I think this is a great example of a Rush love song that hits the mark. Unlike, what was the other one we were talking about earlier? That kind of The Speed of Love was a little tacky, or I don't know, a little sappy. I would say not tacky, but sappy. This one, like, I mean, just right off the bat, I love the first lyric of the line. It's like, it says, "It was long after midnight when we got to unconditional love." Beautiful lyric, I think. It just really just is beautiful, because unconditional love is like not something that like you arrive at like in a time span, right? It's something that just is or isn't, and it happens in a period of time that you can't really contemplate or put your finger on. But right off the bat, it's like, okay, it was just after midnight when we got to unconditional love. Maybe it was a conversation, or did they arrive at that as two people? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think that this is Neil Peart. This isn't one of my favorite Neil Peart kind of love or singing about love and relationship songs, but I think the lyrics do work quite well. Ironically, I think the part of the lyrics that I like least is the name of the song. I think Cold Fire is a bit trite somehow, but the rest of the lyrics,
it's very proggy. It's very proggy.
Yeah, no, that's actually
and when
true.
you're writing a Rush love song, you got a proggy element in it.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I love that. Don't go too far. That's like a really honest, realistic kind of portrait of a mature relationship. That is not the kind of thing that people write many songs about. But I think that spirit is at its best. You
hit the nail on the head. You know what this song is evocative of? It's not exactly, but it's evocative of like these, 1970s, not necessarily Kramer versus Kramer, but like these 1970s like drama romances, very smart, very adult kind of romantic movies. Sometimes comedic, sometimes dramatic, but this is what it's evocative of. Very mature subject of romance.
Yeah. I like this, but I will say just the last maybe my last comment on this song is I do like this. I think he executes on these lyrics really well, but it really I think I'm prepared to say that across his entire portfolio of kind of lyrics that he's written for the band over the many, many years, I think that he is best at writing about teenage kids and the feelings that teenage kids, and I'm not, I genuinely think that he is able to channel in a very honest, like not overly romantic way, what it feels like to be a teenage kid in all of that complexity. And I really do think that's like, that is kind of Peart's superpower. A lot of people talk about like, oh, the fantasy Neil Peart writing these crazy sci-fi stories or whatever it is, or oh, the Ayn Randian kind of Neil Peart writing about free will and blah, 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 blah. I think he does those and those are interesting about him. But when you really kind of dig in, I think his best lyrics consistently across all of the songs are his kind of teenaged angst songs.
I buy that. Yeah.
Don't know why that occurred to me when I was listening to this song. I guess it was just kind of thinking about like his love songs, his relationship songs versus some other.
But category. I think the most revealing of who he is as a person come out in his love songs.
I would 100%.
Yeah.
I think I would 100% agree with that. I think they are the most revealing of who he is at the moment he's writing them.
Yeah, because we've discussed this before. I mean, in face-to-face interactions with people, was a very shy person, and he told us that in Limelight, right? But it doesn't mean that he doesn't want people to know what's going on inside of him. He just wants to do it on his own terms. And he is very revealing in his lyrics. And also I mentioned this before in Ghost Rider. So it's not that he's like, doesn't want to let people in. He wants to do it on his own term and his own media. And this is an example of that, I think. Yeah. Like this is arguably, I would say even one of the most intimate love songs that he's written, because it has actual dialogue and, getting into like, a very intimate conversation that adults have.
Yeah. Yep. All right, Ralph, are we ready to call it quits on this album after we listen to the final song? The final song on side C, side 3 is Everyday Glory, Ralph. Everyday Glory Hole. 5 minutes and 11 seconds. Are you ready to listen to it?
You know what? Hang on. Yes, now I am.
Okay, excellent. All right, here we go. Everyday Glory.
Everyday people, everyday shame, everyday promise, shut down in flames, everyday sunrise, another everyday story, rise from the ashes, blaze of everyday glory, rise from the ashes, blaze of everyday glory.
I think that Everyday Glory is in many ways
part 2 of Nobody's Hero.
Yeah, it is definitely
in a way.
It's exactly what I was going to say. I personally think these lyrics work much better than Nobody's Hero. I like these lyrics quite a bit, but I do think he's hitting on the same beat as he does in Nobody's Hero.
Can I say something? And I think many of our listeners will agree. One of the things that I find kind of validating as an adult, having been such a huge fan of Rush as like a kid, before we knew anything about the guys in the band, their values or whatever, right? You know how they say like, don't meet your heroes, like you'll be disappointed. The thing about Rush, and I think this really comes out in their lyrics, especially with things like Nobody's Hero and Everyday Glory even. I've never met the guys, so I may be totally wrong, but it seems that they're really fucking good people, right? Like they were, like Neil Peart was, but like Geddy and Alex, like they're decent human beings. And the reason why I say that is because the themes that they write about consistently, not just like one or two songs, and the depth at which they write about it is just really reveals that they value things that are really, good and ethical. And I think that's really wonderful that these brilliant musicians, songwriters are also good people at their core. And I think songs like this, celebrating these little victories of every day, or Nobody's Hero, which tells people, hey, remember what true heroism is. You can't write from that well. You can't pull from that well if you aren't genuinely a decent person. And I just want to take a moment to just appreciate the fact that Rush is not only an amazing band, but they're really, they strike me. I got to be careful to say this, because I could be I doubt that I'm wrong, but I don't want to paint myself in the corner here, but they seem like really good people.
Yeah. I would agree that they seem like very good, nice people. But I don't care. I don't care about that. What I care about is the lyrics and the music, Ralph. And I think that these lyrics are good. As I said, I think they're good. I think they're among the better lyrics on this album. People face challenges. They overcome challenges. That's the everyday glory. This is something that's part of what we should have in our lives. We need to be the person who is going to overcome these challenges that we all face in our lives. And that's kind of the everyday glory that we should, expect and appreciate. So I like that sentiment. I think these are pretty good lyrics. I have no issue with it. But Ralph, on the music, can I just throw something out there? I know that you may appreciate this.
Okay.
This song is so U2 in a way that I have never heard Rush be very U2, but this song sounds exactly like a post Zoo TV era.
Yeah.
U2 song.
I see that.
Just imagine Bono singing it instead of Geddy. And you really almost have to do nothing else. I mean,
you're right. Yeah. The more I'm thinking about it, the more it grows on me. I mean, yeah. I kind of want Bono, and I want U2 to cover this song just to hear what
I know.
It sounds like.
I mean, it's like it really reminded me of a U2 song, and it's both. I think it's a combination of the guitar playing. Yeah,
it's very edgy kind of guitar,
and just the songwriting. But like weirdly, I don't even know when Zoo TV came out, but when I was listening, I was like, oh my God, this sounds just like kind of post Zoo TV era U2. Because I do think, I'm not a huge U2 fan, but I do think, the kind of the Zoo TV and all that stuff, there was a pretty significant change in their sound from, Joshua Tree and really everything that was before. Then they got into that Zoo TV thing. And then after they got out of the Zoo TV thing, that whole Berlin era for them, it got back to more this kind of anthemic rock that was a little bit more straightforward in some ways. And I feel like this really kind of resides in that era of U2.
Yeah.
Setting aside that Larry Mullen Jr. is, almost incapable completely of playing drums, and Peart is like one of the best drummers ever. But like setting those minor things aside, I think
I don't agree with that, but I get what you're saying.
You think you're going to defend Larry Mullen Jr. I'm sure he's a very nice guy. His playing works very well.
I think he's the right drummer for the right band.
Wow. Well, all right. Who would be the wrong drummer for that band then?
Neil Peart. You two would suck if Neil Peart was your drummer. I'll tell you that much.
Okay. Well, and it was we're going to set you two aside, but that was the thing I wanted to throw out there. And so it sounds like you can see that.
I can see that. I do think musically it's very anthemic. There have been other Rush albums that I've described as, and I think, was it Nine Inch Nails? Someone wrote a song called Exit Music for a film. Oh no, it was Radiohead. This is like exit music for a film. Like the musically, it's the type of music you could hear as you're walking out of a theater after you saw a great movie, which was called Rush Counterparts, right? Or a secret double agent from Rush Counterparts. So it's anthemic. Lyrically and musically, I think it's very anthemic. It's not the most memorable anthem, but it also it really puts a button on this album, I think, in a really nice way, because this album is all about duality, primarily duality of the human spirit, right, and human nature. And I think this is really sort of saying, look, life is about duality, the yin and the yang, right? And ultimately it culminates in every one of us. And I think that's what's really touching maybe about this album, the lyrics and the music. So what strikes me about it, though, is they're clearly, and it's not just from Counterparts, from every album that we reviewed so far, or revisited, I should say. We're not really reviewing them, but revisited, is the deliberateness which with Rush has constructed the songs and the order of the songs of these albums that are just so well themed to whatever the theme is for the respective album. And I never really appreciated that as a Rush fan my entire life. I mean, here I am pushing 50, and it's taken this podcast to make me sort of appreciate that. Maybe to some of our listeners, that's been like self-evident. Like, of course, yeah, well, you're just learning this. But like, this is like kind of new to me. And it's for an album, like, I feel like I'm kind of wrapping up the album already, but for an album like Counterparts that I for most of my life just panned, or just didn't give much thought to, it's way more substantive than I gave it credit for, I think. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, we're not through the entire catalog yet, but I feel like their albums are always substantive. There's always a lot to dig into. This one, and I think that's the same with this one. There is a lot to dig into here. I'm not certain that I would consider it a super successful album for the band, but I don't think it's for lack of interest, basically, right? I mean, again, we've said it many times, but I think that is the thing. I think I'm going to tie this to the Roll the Bones rap for a second.
Can you do it in rap? Can you tie it into the rap in rap?
I can't, Jack.
Do iambic pentameter, then do it in Shakespearean style. Anyway.
So we've talked a lot about how do you balance being a fan of the band and being a fanboy, and I guess I would differentiate those. It's like a fanboy will say every single thing that they've ever done is perfect, and how dare you ever criticize it, and blah, blah. And that's
do you encounter those people in emails or in?
Yes. Okay. I would say that there is a non-trivial minority, very vocal non-trivial minority.
And as a PSA to fanboys across the world of anything, the people you're a fanboy of will respect you more if you are able to criticize them like intelligently and constructively. So I think it trivializes everything that Rush did over this amazing, very long career to act like every single thing that they ever produced is amazing. It just isn't. And if it were consistently good in a similar way, it would mean they weren't experimenting and taking the kind of risks that have resulted in the very interesting evolution of the band over time, right? So I mean, I just really fundamentally think that,
I love the fact that Animate and Stick It Out are such raw rock driving, almost metally songs. I love the fact that they were clearly influenced by grunge. Do I think that's the best Rush that exists? No, but I'm really happy that they like dabbled in that, because I expect that as, you know, we listen to the next albums, you'll be able to hear a little bit of like how they took that influence and distilled it into something that's somehow more purely Rush, maybe, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. I totally agree with what you just said. I totally agree with that. Yeah.
So, all right. So, Raf, here we are at the end of this album, 3-sided album, 3 episodes of this podcast dedicated to Counterparts. Who would have thought? But now you're going to have to synthesize all of the important information that we've discussed to determine what is the best song on Counterparts, Raf. What is the best song on Counterparts?
Okay, my favorite song is going to be, I would say, honestly, I'm going out on a limb here. I'm going to say Cold Fire.
You know what, Raf? You're absolutely right. Cold Fire is that song on the album. There is no question about it. I would say that Double Agent is maybe a close second, actually. But Cold Fire, when all of the evidence has been presented to the jury, the jury, Cold Fire is
I see what you did there.
Okay, so Raf, now the worst song on the album.
Speed of Love. The Speed of Love.
Well, that is absolutely correct. Speed of Love is such a stinker.
I may be stupid, but I'm not crazy.
It is such a stinker. All right, buddy, you aced that test on Counterparts. I didn't think you were going to ace it, but you fucking aced it. You aced it. I love
great.
It. All right, so listen,
do good, Dad.
We're done. We're done with
that.
This
was a doozy. That was a 3.5 hour. I shouldn't say that because we got to give the illusion that we're doing it every week. But that was a tough one, and the reason why it was a tough one is because it was new. It was the newest album that we've done so far to both of us, and what I mean by that is it's the one we were both least familiar with.
That's right,
and it was eye opening for me because going into it from my impressions before re-listening and really sort of dissecting the album a little bit more closely as we do, was that I wasn't really looking forward to it like other albums. But I do feel I'm coming out of this with a much, much greater appreciation for the album as a whole. Even though there are a few songs that I think sort of misled me into thinking that it shouldn't be considered as closely as it should. So I would implore you all to, give this, if Rush lost you with this album, like it did a bunch of people, I implore you to get back to it and give it another chance.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely worthwhile time to be spent listening to this album. I'm not going to rank this album among, my top 5 favorites, but I definitely am happy to have spent time with it. And I can't wait to get into these last few albums here. I can't believe that we're this close to the end, by the way, that we are, but holy cow, are we close to the end?
Yeah.
Now, see,
and I do want to say, I mean, you just sent me the link to this. I do want to say thank you to all of anyone who's engaged with us about this. We're not doing this for money. We're not selling ads against this. We're just doing it because we love Rush. And, we've had these conversations, Dan and I, privately, and we thought it might be illuminating or fun to do it publicly so other people can join the conversation. So really would appreciate when people, contact us, through Instagram at Backtracking Rocks, or it might be through X.com, which was formerly known as Twitter. At Backtracking Rocks or backtrackingrocks@gmail.com.
Yeah. So yes, please get in touch with us. Backtracking Rocks, ROX on Reddit. Thank you to everyone who engaged in the conversation about the Roll the Bones rap. I was asking on there for kind of a steelman defense of the rap. And I think I got some, I think I got some fanboy responses, but I also think I got a lot of really thoughtful, compelling responses that really helped me see it in a slightly less cynical way. And I think that, I don't want to use that.
Hello. What am I, chopped liver?
Yeah. But it was really fun to listen to what everyone else thought of what I think is probably one of the more controversial moments in Rush's career was the Roll the Bones rap, and it was fun to kind of hear what people had to say about it.
Well, so again, for the record, I unabashedly liked it and enjoy it. So,
well, that's the wrong answer, but go ahead, Rob. Now we've got Instagram, Backtracking Rocks, ROX. We've got Twitter, Backtracking Rocks, ROX. We've got Reddit, as I said. And Rob, did you tell him that we have an email address?
Yeah, backtrackingrocks@gmail.com.
Why haven't they fucking emailed yet?
Come on, email us. What's the matter with you? Come on, you fucking guy. Come on, email us. Jesus.
You gotta hit the share, you gotta hit the like, you gotta hit the subscribe, you gotta hit the 5-star rating, you gotta do
the fucking
all
chef's kiss. Come on. What's the matter with you? Come on, what's the matter with you?
All right, so Rob, next week we'll be back. We're gonna be diving into what?
Echo test.
Test for Echo, my friend. Test for Echo.
Test for Echo. And this is a very unique album because, as we discussed, it is sort of like the end of like the original Rush run, right? At least my eras, right?
Yeah.
So we'll discuss that next week, though. In the meantime, stay safe. Make sure you wear your mask. Get vaccinated.
Yeah. Have a great.
Not against COVID, against chlamydia. So
that's right. Wear a mask against chlamydia, guys. Whenever I have sex with someone, I usually put a Ronald Reagan mask on my penis.
All right. See you next week.
Bye.